Okay, cool. So I will call the Strategic Planning Marketing Committee regular meeting of the Pajaro Valley Healthcare District Hospital Corporation to order. And Rosie, can you please give us a roll call?
Yes, Director Gallagher?
Yes.
And Director Nunez?
Yes, here. Are there any agenda modifications for consideration today?
Not that I'm aware of.
It doesn't look like it. So now I'll open up the public comment on matters not on today's agenda.
No hands raised or attendees online.
Okay. And any comments from the committee members? Joe, would you like to go first if you have any comments?
I guess it's sort of a half thought is, I realize it's an important first step, but I'm sort of anxious to see us getting out to the community broadly, advertising it. My comments.
Thank you, Joe. I don't have any. I just want to be mindful of everyone's time because I was late. So we'll go right into the discussion items and start setting up this committee. So the first item in the discussion is Strategic Planning and Marketing Committee Chair appointment. And before us is we have to pass a motion to consider and approve the appointment of a board chair as nominated by the existing committee members. There, along with this agenda, there was a packet that came forth with a report for each of the 5 items on our discussion. And I wanted to make a recommendation, and Rosie, please correct me if we have to go through and open up a public comment for each item. I don't think we do, but no, for each item, or do we have to have public comment and open it up?
I think yes. Even though we don't have any public, anything to offer.
Okay. And so I'll leave it up to now. Any discussion around this? I guess at this moment right now, just myself and Joe are the only people on the actual committee. Joe, any discussion around this? Any questions that you have for staff about what the chair of this committee would do and the responsibilities of that at this moment?
I don't at this moment. The one question I do have is, does the chair need to be a board member?
I believe so, as all of the other committees are.
And I would volunteer.
Okay. So I'm gonna now seeing that any additional information or any discussion from staff before I open it up for a public comment about the committee chair appointment? Doesn't look like there's any, so I'm going to open up to public comment. Seeing none in the room, still no people online, so I'll close down the public comment. And Joe, I think I heard you say that you'd like to volunteer to serve as chair of the committee.
I'm happy to volunteer or step aside should you want to do this.
Are you already serving as chair for the other committee for the
In the old employee engagement, I was interim chair, but we haven't reconvened.
Okay.
And if it's either or, I think I'm a better fit for employee engagement.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say is I think the both of us, just because of I say this and I'm entering on Zoom or attending on Zoom, but just because of our employment, at least right now, the makeup of the board, I do like splitting up the work a little bit in this sort of way. And so I'd make that suggestion, Joe, if you can continue to do the employee engagement one when we come to that. And then if I could serve on this one as a chair, I think that would be really helpful to split it that way.
It's fine by me.
Okay. And so would you make a motion? I would make a motion to do it. I'm fine. I don't know if a first and second is needed if there's only 2 people.
You can make your motion.
I know that Tony Nunez, chair, strategic planning, marketing committee of the board.
Okay. And I guess I'll second that, and then I guess we'll have a roll call on that.
Fantastic. Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Director Nunes?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Okay. Item number 2 is the Strategic Planning and Marketing Committee member appointments. We have before us a recommendation to approve the appointment of Stephen Gray, the CEO of Watsonville Community Hospital, as a senior executive position on the committee. Matko Ranges, the CEO of Watsonville Community Hospital, as the second senior executive position. Julie Peterson, CFO of Watsonville Community Hospital, as a third senior executive spot, and then Nancy Gear, the marketing and directing chief of Watsonville Community Hospital, as a director and manager to serve on the strategic planning and marketing committee. Any questions with those initial 4 appointments, Joe, that you have of staff?
No questions.
Or no questions? My only question is for Steve, the timing of and what the outreach will look like in terms of filling out the rest of the board. Do we have a plan for something like that, of how we'd like to reach out to people within the hospital and ask them for this? And then also the 2 community member seats?
Well, so I think item number 3 is discussing the committee description, and because we have talked about revisiting the makeup of the board committees in the bylaws. As it's written right now, the bylaws list a whole bunch of different positions that we would fill to try to create this committee, but we have the opportunity to change that and change the language in the bylaws so that we're more likely to make quorum and have the right people in the room and so forth. So I think I would just say I don't have a plan for outreach to additional people, because I think we need to talk about who else we want to join us.
Okay, fair enough.
Modify that in the bylaws.
Okay, thanks for that. Anything else, Joe, before I open it up to a public comment?
I appreciate the bylaws revision and think about it. My thought at this point is I have liked the idea of having 2 frontline employees, not 2 community members. I'd like to see that persist in bylaws revision and address it when we get there.
Okay. I'm going to open up the public comment portion now. It doesn't look like there's anyone that has entered the room since the last public comment, so I don't think there's any public comment on this matter. Rosie, anyone online with us right now? No? Okay. And so I'll bring it back to us, Joe, for a motion on this for the to appoint the 4 recommended members of the committee on this. And
I think that we appoint, as listed in item number 2, the 4 members, and defer discussion of the additional members until after bylaws revision.
okay, I'll second that motion. Rosie, if we can have a
Yes. Director Gallagher?
Yes.
Attorney Nunes?
yes. Okay. Moving on to item number 3. Also welcome to the committee. Thank you for your service. This is the strategic planning and marketing committee description. You guys know I like to keep it light. So we're set to review and discuss the strategic planning marketing committee description, the scope of outline below in the Fall River Valley Healthcare District Hospital Corporation bylaws. Steve, do you want to tee this up for us, and then we can go through and add some context if we'd like to say what just like to have the open conversation about what we would like to, the changes we would like to have to the bylaws.
Yeah, so in the packet is the excerpt from the bylaws that describes this committee, and it describes the membership of the committee as 2 board members, and then a total minimum of at least 12 persons, including 2 senior executives, 2 hospital directors or managers, 2 providers with medical staff privileges, 2 hospital frontline staff, and 2 community members. And then it also describes the sort of the reason for being of the committee as overseeing marketing and strategic planning, integration of operations and facilities, service changes, position development, facility planning, and strategic alliances and ventures. Oversee the development of the community benefit programs and shall seek input into its work.
Who's the member? As I was reading this, it says, seek input into the work from the member.
It's the district.
Is that considered
Yeah.
the district? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To do with the nonprofit.
The district is a member, yeah, right. So I guess we could just open that up for discussion if we think this is the right list. I heard Dr. Gallagher earlier say it would be nice to keep the idea of a couple of staff members and a couple of community members. I wonder if we wanted to make it, one idea might be to make it a little bit more open and say, you know, we'll have 4 leadership positions, directors, senior executives, and 4 to 5 other members, which could include physicians, frontline staff, community members, so that we can kind of be a little more flexible.
I'm okay with that. I forgot the med staff members. You need 4 to get 2 at least.
And there's a quorum if you have, so at 12, you'd have to have 7 or 6 for a quorum.
Is it half?
I believe it's 7. Yeah.
So
I think it's
even
half
for
plus
10,
1. That's
you'd
why
have to have
just having Joe here wasn't a forum.
So are we just talking about membership first before we get into the
about
second
going
part?
then for like 7 as the minimum, so we get like 3 of the others. And so then quorum would at least be 4, which got
Right, one of the things we
6
learned, I
established
think,
so far.
Dr. Gallagher with the employment one, is great to have frontline staff, it's also hard to get them to attend. So I think it's
Sure.
just important to make sure there's enough of us who are reliable attendees to get quorums. You know what I'm saying?
I do, I mean, it's partly, to try to have it, try to accommodate, understood, 2 PM meetings on a workday, or all in our office, and I understand that employee engagement, although people were quite interested, the attendance has.
We gotta cancel.
Steve, is there any way, I don't know, just because of how the committee works, you'd have to be appointed to have a vote on it. I don't know if there's anything that we can do where we can have like, I know that this happens for the RTC and for other commissions and committees throughout or for commissions especially throughout the county, is they'll send like their alternate. They'll have like an alternate appointed underneath them as someone who, if someone else is not available, then they can go and do that. And so I don't know if that's something as a way that we can solve that frontline staff. I mean, so that they have four members that are appointed, but 2 of them are the main appointees and the ones that are relied upon consistently coming to the meetings, and then they can always have someone that step in as their alternate. I don't know if we can work that into the bylaws or what the rules would be around that.
I don't know the answer either, but. We'll have to look that up.
Because I do like the idea of having those 2 frontline staff members in at least the discussions, and having them be a part of the strategic outlook for the year. Outside of that though, like I'm with you guys. It is really difficult, to get staff on there, and I think, like I said in my comments in an earlier email, I think last week, is I want the work of this committee to be really additive, and to not be something that's holding back the work of staff as we're going through this, because I know, quite frankly, we don't have all of the staff that we need to do all the work that needs to be done at this point. And so, I think if that I like the idea of having some sort of system like that where it's like an alternate. You get your two appointees, and then they could send an alternate. But I think even that alternate in the RTC is something that is voted upon by the rest of the commission, and then that person is approved as an alternate. So I don't think that solves it, but it at least gives them their best chance to get someone in that meeting and have a vote on something.
Well, I like the idea. I think we can definitely explore that. In the meantime, right now we have 6 members, right? We have 2 board members, 4 leaders from the hospital. So what if the bylaws said something like 2 board members plus a maximum of 8 other members, at least 2 of whom are senior leaders, the rest of whom are a mixture of managers, directors, physicians on medical staff, frontline staff, and community members. And then that leaves us with 4 slots to try to fill. With those people, and potentially with backup or alternates as we're allowed to.
Okay.
That sound
And
like
then,
the right, or should it be one more than that? Should it be 9? Make an odd number?
yeah, it has to be odd. And then I don't know if we can, I like that. I'm just, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. So that we can move forward and do some of the work that we need to do in this group. I'm wondering if we can put in there that, like if the quorum grows as members are appointed, I guess, like if we start off with this group of 6, then we can say that our quorum is 4 or whatever that might be. And as we grow the number, I just want to make sure that recruiting people is really difficult for some of this stuff, especially at the times that we're going to be meeting. So I want to be able to continue to meet and to have quorum and to actually, make progress on the things. And so I don't know if that's something that's possible that
Quorum,
as we add members.
quorum should be based on membership, right? And so right now our membership is 6. We're saying that it can grow to 9 or to 11, right?
Right.
To 11. But they're not members that are counting against the quorum until we actually appoint them and bring them and vote on them as members, right? So as of today, quorum for the next meeting would be 4.
Okay. I didn't understand that. Okay, good.
And we're saying it's a maximum of 11, not a minimum.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we only had the 2 today, and 4 more didn't come on, we still.
Right.
Are we considering changing as a minimum of 12?
Yeah, to a maximum of 11. To a maximum of 11. What Rosie just.
Instead of the minimum of 12, saying we have to put 12 people on the committee, we're gonna say there will be no more than 11. 6 is fine, 9 is fine, 11 is fine.
Okay, we changed from minimum of 12.
Yeah.
Right. Didn't understand the math. Still less than 12.
All right.
We're compliant no matter how
There
many
we go.
pass, right?
Can we talk about the second half of the paragraph, or is it,
Yeah,
do we need to make a
I think
motion
so,
about
unless we
that?
want to.
But it just struck me as I looked through this list, and I could just look up, but hospital operations and facilities, to me, this committee is really about strategic planning, not about operations and facilities. It seems odd to be in there. It seems like my hope for this committee is that it's about the big picture of where we're going as an organization. And even the marketing piece is I see as a small piece of this. It really should be driven by the bigger picture. And I hope that the committee focuses on that strategic planning and strategic role, like was discussed in the board retreat, that the board and its committees can be a real asset on helping with strategic direction, not with, the marketing, a lot of marketing, their strategic marketing has to be done, for sure, and that will be great, but it's odd to have operations in there.
I read it completely different, I read it as you can't do anything strategic planning wise if you haven't figured out how to integrate it into operations and facilities. So I just read that the word like integration was kind of like your checks and balances to anything you plan strategically.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it wasn't that they would do.
You're saying, don't live up there in an ivory tower apart from everything else. Is that what you're saying?
Don't sit there and have all these grandiose ideas that we can't implement.
Well,
you know.
absolutely, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so I just read it more as it was kind of saying that they help, the strategic planning committee would help oversee that what decisions are being made are able to be integrated, not that they would do.
Okay, I think it just needs some wordsmithing, because to me, it reads like this committee will oversee the integration of ops and facilities. So,
Is it
anyway,
more-
I don't know what you think.
Is it more
It seems odd to me.
like strategic planning and consideration of?
Right, it's like, I mean, I don't mean to get nitpicky, but I think it is important, if we are all, to be gone tomorrow and somebody else picks this up, they could, it's important to be clear that this group is overseeing strategic planning,
I kind of think where you're going is right, that it's like everything after that sentence, it's like, they're gonna oversee strategic planning while ensuring
Yes.
integration, service changes,
Yes.
position development, blah, 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 you know.
planning that will ensure stability of operation, or something like that,
Yeah.
Matt, just from the operations side, does that make sense? Does that jive with you as well too? Like the interpretation and the feedback we just got?
Yeah, no, I think,
Okay.
some just word changes will help clarify.
Do we want to do that here? Hash that out? Probably.
Yeah, why not?
Anybody else who will?
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah, right?
It's almost like I don't know, I'll just throw this out, break it into two. Strategic
Sure.
planning will oversee strategic planning and I think it's important to say strategic marketing as opposed to operational marketing, oversee, both. And then maybe just period, and then the strategic direction this committee provides will ensure,
Integration.
yeah, something like that, right? Because that's what it is. This committee's providing direction, but it has to be direction that's implementable, right? Is that what I'm?
The strategic direction is provides,
Will ensure, I guess you could,
the integration of hospital operations and facility service, investment, development, facilities, planning. It's weird, it's that integration of operations and facilities is like its own little thing, because everything else is like, when you do service changes, you need to be able to kind of ensure operations can handle it. When you do physician development, what's the operational impact or the facility
Right.
impact? So it's kind of, that's like, everything else is like a sub, like when you're doing this, gotta ensure this. So then maybe the strategic direction this committee provides will ensure the integration of hospital operations and facilities, period. And then, well, it's like in areas such as service changes or adjustments, position development, facility plan. That's the best wording that I think. The strategic planning and marketing committee shall oversee marketing and strategic planning. But Nancy, you said something like strategic
Marketing and planning.
and planning.
Should it be strategic planning and marketing?
Just do strategic twice.
Yeah, okay.
It's okay to be redundant, for clarity.
And strategic planning. The strategic direction this committee provides will ensure the integration of hospital operations and facilities in areas such as service changes or adjustments, position development, facility planning, and strategic alliances and investments.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the rest of it. Let's see, the committee will oversee development and implementation of the community benefit program. Yeah, I guess, let's see, oversee.
So the way that reads for me is in practice, what that would mean, and definitely some, everyone else jump in as well too, is that we would, staff would come to us with an idea or a plan of how to integrate a new service, or like a plan for a new service, and saying this is what we would like to do in this upcoming year. And then as directors, we would give feedback on that plan and ensure that through our experience, and ensure that through this committee that we are looking at this from beginning all the way until end, of our goals, right? So we understand how it's going to be implemented, and we can think strategically about where we need to grow in order to offer that service. Is that, like, in a nutshell, like what this?
I guess I kind of think of it, and I think one of our next items is what kind of when we talk about our guiding principles of how we make
Right.
decisions or how we prioritize work, that any kind of idea would have already gone through kind of like operational vetting to even get this far. And if it seemed like it had legs, it would be kind of teed up in a standard way that would come here and say, does it meet all the criteria? How does it fit just from a timing perspective, a budget perspective, a marketing, whatever. But whatever our criteria was, this would kind of be that kind of go, no-go decision. But we'd have to have some criteria that says, it's got to be at least as big as a breadbasket, because we probably don't want to bring, every crumb here.
Right. Right.
We would have the opportunity to do closed session as well, right? Talking about.
Yeah. On that very limited scope that we can do closed session on.
There would be elements that would fall under that. And then with this committee, we have the ad hoc, partnership committee. With this committee, we talked about strategic alliances, partnerships. Would this committee then take over that work? Seems like it's within the charter.
Well, I would think that once it's become, once it's become like an official agreement between whatever party and then the hospital, then it becomes just like any other agreement, right? And that ad hoc committee ceases to exist, but ceases to have some sort of oversight of it, I suppose, because then you could say that committee, that ad hoc, would be talking about the same things that this committee would be talking about, and that would have some Brown Act violations around that, or like some limitations around that. So,
But
But
by
I-
definition, the ad hoc committee should cease to exist soon, right?
right,
It's gotta have a limited time period.
yeah,
And the wording in here talks about oversee integration of these services. So will we just be oversee integration, or will we actually be discussing strategic nature of these potential alliances? This committee should be discussing and deciding on those things, I would think, instead of just overseeing the integration of it. The overseeing integration of it is just an operational element. So I think the wording, the way it's worded,
How would you suggest we word it instead?
just eliminate the word integration, I guess. Shall oversee strategic marketing, strategic planning.
After the new language we put in there with the strategic direction that we provide will ensure the integration, so it's just strategic direction. But is there more?
Well, I think,
I mean, I think this kind of goes back to what you were first saying, which is like, had we had this committee established first,
Right.
Would we really have needed that ad hoc committee for the
I don't
RFP
think
thing? I mean, I know we've had to learn some, we had to go through some hurdles to kind of learn this first time whether we could be involved or not, but now, if we thought there was still a question like that, we'd kind of rescind until we got that squared away. But it kind of feels like, had we already done this, this is the committee that would have been kind of doing the work that the ad hoc committee has done up to this point, and, evaluating the RFP and, the stuff we still have ahead of us. So if another thing like that came up, it kind of seems like this committee would say, well, here's the guts of it, who else do we need to pull in? That's good.
Yeah, I think the reason for the ad hoc committee, Julie, is just so that we can do the work and have the meetings and discussions outside of the public view at that point, so that, just like you were saying, the closed session allows us to discuss trade secrets, but only to a certain capacity, right? So only if it's like a new service or something like that, or a real estate transaction. And so with the ad hoc committee, we can start that up and have those discussions, and like have the meeting with Sutter and that sort of stuff, and not have to have it publicly noticed and have people, know that we're having those meetings. So I think that's how the ad hoc committee is useful for us. And then this would be something else that I think you said it, is when something is nice and baked and ready for us to review and have some input on. This is where we would bring some of those things and how and discuss how it might line up with our overall strategic plan and our goals. So I think there's a need for those sorts of ad hoc committees when we're discussing something like that, and like you said, like going over some of the hurdles and finding our way with some of these new things. But I do agree that this should be for something like that when now that is already established. I think this is a good group to bring those things forward to.
Yeah, I think this is gonna have kind of that fine line between like operations and strategic oversight when you think about, okay, so we're working on something and we're bringing updates here, and maybe we're running into, some kind of challenge or hurdle or timing or, and then it's gonna be, okay, do we pause this or do we do something a little differently because this other thing's more important, or, and that's gonna be when are those decisions made at the operational standpoint, and when do they require something here? Sure, tease that apart.
All right, going back to the language, if we eliminate integration of PVHCDH operations and facilities from that sentence, and include it later in the paragraph, I think it'll separate the two. It would read: strategic planning and marketing committee shall oversee strategic marketing, strategic planning, service changes or adjustments, position development, facility planning, and strategic alliances and ventures. As that sentence, and then later on we can include oversee integration of operations. That make better?
Where we had language around that, decisions made will ensure integration or something like that. What was it? Rosie, did we recapture it?
The sentence we've changed it to was the strategic direction that the committee provides will ensure the integration of the hospital operations and facilities in areas such as.
Yeah.
Those three.
Yeah, this is one of those things to me where it feels like, which thing do you do first? And it's like, trying to kind of solve this language, I keep wanting to, like, the next agenda item, where we really kind of squared away more, like, what are we doing here?
Exactly.
And then it might make the doing this language easier.
Yeah, should we put a pin in it for right now?
Yeah.
Back to it? Might come back to it today, we might come back to it next week.
This is fine with me. It's fine with them.
Fine with me.
What do you think,
That's fine. Steve did, just the question to Noel and team about having alternates, how that would work, what we would need to do for bylaw reasons and that sort of stuff. I think it would be helpful. But I'm fine with calling that a good, good discussion stopping point that we could come back to this item at a future meeting, which I think we're gonna probably discuss a couple times over, in terms of the bylaw changes anyways, to get this right. Um, so we're okay to move on to item number 4?
Yep.
Okay, so item number 4, 2023 strategic plan and 2024 retreat recommendations. Says the contact is me, but Steve, I'll let you tee this one up for us whenever you're ready.
Okay, so these are notes that Rosie compiled from our board retreat. And we had 4 board members prioritize action in 4 different areas and discussed that they would like to see future iterations of dashboards and identifying opportunities in the following 6 areas. So I think that's what we should spend a few minutes talking about. We're obviously not going to be able to do all 10, but over the next couple of months while we're in 2025 budgeting season, what do we want to what among these things do we want to prioritize? For 2025. The rest is 24 and into 20.
Apologize, not loading this sooner, but I can sort of see. Do you have those up in front of you, or do you want me to share them?
You can share the screen.
Well, I'll just start. I would love to see number 2, but that's gonna cost money. So I don't know if that can be our priority. Number 2, develop process to secure and evaluate community feedback on the values, programs, and services, measure and act on public perception, define opportunities, metrics regarding community trust. I mean, that I would love that, but I don't think really it's probably in our budget for next year. Is to have, tracking, market research, and, all of that costs money. It would be nice to have, but I think maybe some of the other things might, because that's our biggest, our hurdle is some of these cost money. Prioritizing that.
Well, and I mean, I kind of just feel that we have to have criteria how we're going to do any kind of evaluation of anything.
Yeah, number 1.
First, anyway.
Yeah. Great.
Have a comment on this item number 2. I think it's the key item on the
Please do. Talk to the lady to your right.
Yeah, we will find it in the next 12 months.
I understand this doesn't come from operations, but foundation or elsewhere. I think it's the key. One of those logjam issues. How I see it.
But, I guess I see as you want to expand programs, then it's kind of like having the community help you evaluate with how to prioritize them. But I kind of also see us, we're in the bare bones. This is what we do as a hospital, and this is really all we can afford to do as a hospital right now. So the community involvement, that is like of a different nature, and it's just the core things you do versus the add-ons.
I guess I see it as the 58% of this is a way of engaging them, finding out what it opinion on that? Or
Oh, yeah, no, yeah,
I got it.
they're both,
Saying,
yeah, they're
you
both,
do what you do and then
yeah.
fine tune it by.
So Dr. Gallagher, you're talking more about community perception, not so much about service offerings and service additions and expansions, but like, what are the perceptions right now of Watsonville Community Hospital that are allowing you to choose us, or that are making you not choose us?
All of those things. But I'd like to see. I think I've got some lumber.
You're a lumper, is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, you can do some, I guess I'll go back on that. You can do, it's not, you can do some of that, the low budget. When I read that, it's a bigger thing to me, and I guess I saw number one as a priority and something we need to be doing, and this committee should be able to provide really good direction, I hope, on. But certainly number two, you know, I myself could I could bring in groups, we just met with a donor yesterday, and it was a great way to have perspective on a totally different member of our potential, customer group than I'm normally focused on. And so, I could see myself doing focus groups of, different varying, commercial payers and Medi-Cal payers and things like that, and getting some really good input on perception. So I think you can do some of that. It's also just a matter of, resources. I can focus on that, something else, and that's great, if that's what we want to do. So I wasn't trying to be a poo-pooer. I'm just trying to prioritize. It seems like number one is a priority.
Both of these.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the question that kind of goes through my mind, is how do you best take in other people's input? I always think like, I kind of got to know where I'm going to understand the input they give me. So if I just start grabbing input and I haven't really thought about what I'm going to do with that input, then I don't know how well I'm going to use it.
Your input right now would be on what are the perceptions currently of this place, not necessarily of, we open this new cardiology, whatever, what do you think of that, or what are the needs there? It's more about what are the perceptions today and what's prohibiting you from becoming a patient, that kind of thing.
And I don't know how you do that. So let's say you grabbed 100 people to answer that question for you, and other than just manually asking them, have you even used any hospital services in the last 3 months or 6 months or a year? Because, some of the public perception is going to be people who choose to drive past us and go somewhere else.
Right.
And some of it is like, well, I haven't really had a need. Would I use you? I guess it probably depends. If I was in an emergency situation, you're 5 minutes away, yeah. Maybe if I wanted to have a baby, maybe I would drive to Sutter or something. It just seems like there's so many different avenues that can go off on. So again, to me, it's like, what's the end game we're trying to achieve about perception?
Along those lines, I would be concerned about our ability to act on that. Right, so.
Well, that's the other thing, that's part B
Right.
of the thing.
Get all the trade data and things, but then we
Right.
can't implement for.
Right, so then, again, it's about prioritizing. Do you wanna spend your time getting data? Do you wanna spend your time implementing marketing strategies? And, it's just a whole of resources.
I also think it would take some tracking down, and I think it's somewhere, I don't know where, but we've got some really good data from the voter initial like ballot question. And so like we have a good temperature check of like what resonates with them, how do they feel about their hospital. I know it's voters and we don't just primarily serve, I know we don't primarily serve Watsonville voters because it's a very different demographic than our demographics, but that gives us a good scope of, how 400 people in our district feel about Watsonville Community Hospital, what they think we do well and what we don't do well and what we need to improve on. And then also, I think we can make some really good, we can make some really good assumptions of the perception of the healthcare district by looking at voter data as well too, and how many yeses we got in percentages and how many nos we got in different precincts of our district. And so I think we can make some really good assumptions from that. And I think we spent, I don't know how many thousands of dollars to get some of that voter polling data, but we should take advantage of that. I know that, we did some really preliminary voter data stuff for community bridges, and that's really informed a lot of our communication planning here and outreach of like where we need to do more communications and where we need to work on some of our perception across the county. And so I think that we have that really great data for number two, and we can make some really great assumptions from that. I think though Nancy's right, and I think it was Matko who said it is, what do you prioritize first, right? And I think it's like identifying like what services are feasible for us in the next year, right? Like in the next a few years, and which ones are going to make the biggest impact. I think the other stuff is important, but or I think number two is important, but I think we have some good data that we can not like, use as make or break data, but that is really could be really useful for us in the short term.
Did Team Civics turn that data over to you? Do you have that? I don't have that.
It should be with Marcus and Ramon. I pretty sure they would still have it. I'd be kind of surprised if they would just trash it after the stuff. But Marcus he was entering all of the yes, nos, call logs, all that sort of stuff manually, and so I'm sure he still has those around somewhere. And then the voter polling data I think is really good. It's a really good like temperature check. And I know it's going to be old when we get to 2025, but it's still like a good temperature check of just the overall perception of where we're at, and like what we need to improve on. I think those are really good things to address number two. And if nothing, it just serves as a like a baseline that we can improve on, right, for metrics going forward. And just looking at it and seeing like, oh, this is important to us. This is not important to us, right? Because there's educational barriers that we need to address in terms of people knowing what is happening at the hospital, what is not happening at the hospital. So, but I agree. I think number one, especially for this group, should be that. And I think when I'm looking at when I'm thinking about additional members of this group, that's what they're going to be most interested in, at least in those first four, is new services, right? Like what can we add? What is feasible? How do we improve the service that we have? All that stuff. So.
I'd like to take a crack at, I already, services don't matter if we still share 42. No way this flies. I think our highest priority is under whatever guise we do that, and I don't necessarily, I think the fact that that data already exists is great, but month after month I see us either at the board meeting being completely internally focused, and that's probably 80 or 90% of the job. But this other part, I think, is something we haven't done, and it was surprising to me when we went with Monica Morales when she had some information about market share, and she said, "I'm surprised you didn't start working on that day one." It's sort of not exactly the same, but that's why I think number two is the essential issue for us. And we can't implement something somebody suggests we need to take our best crack at it and say, it's on the list, we can't do that right now. And so I think what I'm looking for is ways to broadly open a dialogue with the
Yeah, and I think we can do that, Joe, and through some of the conversations we've had through the external partnerships ad hoc committee, about communication, about getting like community input, all that stuff. I think that's something that at least we've had initial interest from our nonprofit partners, especially of like, I've told them like, hey, look, we don't have the money to do some of the things you guys want to do. And they said, well, you don't need money. You guys have us. And so we can start working on something like that, especially on the second list here of the 6 items is like the community connection. Number 2 on that is start to do that outreach. And so I think the difficult part is I think it's different from going out and having an open dialogue with the community about you know, about the strengths and weaknesses and the perception of the hospital, and then gathering data that we can then use to say, okay, that this is like really, really good and thorough data of a good swath of our population and within the district of like what service they want, right? As opposed to going out to them and saying, we're here, come back to us. And you know how I feel about this, about physician recruitment as well too, and just a physician outreach to improve that. I think that has to be way up there on the list of things that we do in 25, 26 in order for us to turn it around. So I think it's if I'm pairing them, and I think we could likely focus on 3 of these, probably of all of these 10. I think number 1 in that first stack of 4 is important to me. Number 2 is really important to me. Um, and then I think the number 4 or 5 is probably the next ones, but the fiscal strategy, I think Julie's done some really great stuff with her team. And I think it's really important, especially with where we're at right now. But for me, I think number 2 in that second list is very different from number 2 in that first list. And to Nancy's point, like number 2 is in that first list, that's like I think a serious investment of dollars, as opposed to just like opening like a community-wide survey or having community town halls, you know, on an ongoing basis. I think those are 2 different things than getting some real good measurable data of focus groups and that sort of stuff. I think that stuff is much more difficult than the second part of that.
So, Tony, did you have a recommendation in the second group of 6 that would be a priority?
Yeah, I think to Joe's point, number 2 of that, the community connection, I think that that's really important. Is for that is to get back out into the community and to start doing that education. And I think it number 2 and number 5 in that, Steve, I think that they work kind of hand in hand. Is number 2 is the community connection, consider identified data, demonstrates that stuff. And then number 5 is increased community understanding of what the district is and what is the next phase focus. So I think they go hand in hand. I think lumping them in might be a little bit, and doing everything that both of them say might be difficult, but those would be my 2 at the top of the at the top. If we're thinking about from like an out, like Joe was saying, like an out exterior perspective, instead of just looking predominantly inside the hospital, the 4 walls of the hospital. For me, those would be the 2 ones.
Okay. I think the agenda item here was to review and discuss these items. I think we've done a nice job with that. I think we got 3 or 4 priorities that maybe we can agendize them for next time and get a little bit more detailed and specific about how we might approach at least 1 or 2 of them. I think we're a minute over, and I know we still want to discuss item 5, which is the schedule, and syncing that up with the budget calendar. Make sure that we're not making strategic decisions after we've already submitted a budget, or in a way that conflicts with the budgeting process.
Kind of just do a authority of the budgeting process, like when would this committee have to be making decisions on some of these things in order to even be in time for the 2025 budget?
Well, I mean, we're there.
Yeah, I Okay, I was gonna say,
I mean,
But it's not too late.
it's not too late,
Right.
but, we're gonna basically be trying to kind of lock down what I'll call like the base, which is kind of like the as-is budget. We're working right now on some departmental labor standards, which, they're gonna draw out because of like the work that Phyllis was talking about this morning and stuff like that. But we're trying to get our net revenues on base services and stuff and things done by July. So, high-level initiative projections I'd be taking to the board in August, according to, my target, my calendar here, such that, in September, we're trying to say, well, like, okay, how much of a gap do we have if we want to do those things? Where's that going to come from? So I don't actually anticipate that there's like going to be some big dollar things coming out of
Right.
this right now.
Right, we're not gonna be this committee's not gonna be recommending let's go invest in this brand new service or service lines, because we're not gonna be able to do that.
Yeah, because at this point, it's unlikely that our budget is going to really have any foresight of what an external partnership is gonna look like. Really gonna know when we're gonna sell this property and have a different makeup of lease payments, insurance payments, so our budget for 25 is gonna be it's gonna be more detailed than 24, but it's gonna be very similar, where it's gonna tick off items, not make them mad, but just kind of tick them off as separate things, like, what, do we have any expectation of Visiet? What is our expectation of the cath lab? What things internally might we be focusing on in terms of, like this year we've had a big push on productivity and overtime. Maybe there's another little something of more operational nature. But I can't imagine, and that we're really far enough right now with anything that we're working on, to have a lot of confidence in some big major budget initiatives.
It's another approach to say, what's a prudent number, and say, okay, it's a strategic market. Small number.
Gotta find,
Strategic planning.
yeah, it's like we gotta find the revenue for anything we put in there, so. Right.
I think I asked Steve to add this item onto the end of it, just so we can get just some overall like range of dates, and to make sure that we're not too late to get into the process of that. And I think most of it will be straightforward, but if there's anything that as you're putting together the planning for next year, that you feel like is good for this group to either review or to have some points into, some input into. That's what I was hoping, is we can is have that time, so we don't get into we don't slow down your process.
Right.
And so, yeah.
It's already going slower than I want it to go, just because there's so much else going on. I mean, if you saw my detailed budget plan, there's like something every day kind of thing. I could certainly try to think of things to surface up here, but I can't imagine it being much more than what I'm already taking to the board, trying to take to the finance committee, because I'm don't yet have the depth in even those things that I want to have.
Sounds like for this committee, we should at least meet again in August, right? And start to flesh out a couple of those priorities, agendize those specifically, and
Really quick back to that second item, or the third item for the language, and as it relates to the bylaws, we are hoping to put forward bylaws edits to the board for review on the 31st of then not ask for approval until the end of August. So is that okay that we reconvene after July 31st and hash out any more language on that, committee, for this committee? And or do we need to meet maybe once or twice?
It sounds like that timing works fine.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll all get to see what we just drafted July, and if it's, feel like we missed a word or messed it up a little, then we can adjust it as a committee, and then final will come back in August, full board. Yeah. So we'll just need to make sure we meet before full August board packets are due, right?
Yeah, so
Week of the 12th.
And do we just want to schedule 1 month at a time?
Really do that for
Oh, well, I'll have to flip all the calendars and Dr. Gallagher. Karen is and
Thank you for that. Well, we got
Okay.
started. That was good.
I will adjourn the meeting. Okay, thank you guys.